In your 4.3 notes, we're going to kind of fill in some important vocab before we get started. So look at this top section. Trigonometry. Essentially, trig means triangle, and metry means measure. So it's kind of like the measures of triangles. A trigonometric ratio, a ratio of the lengths of the sides of a right triangle. Okay, so sine, which is abbreviated sin, so it's not sin of A, we pronounced it sine of A, or sine of B, or sine of whatever your angle is, we just abbreviate it as sin. That trig ratio is the opposite side, so I'm going to abbreviate it op for opposite, over the hypotenuse, and I'm going to abbreviate it hyp. Okay? It's whatever the measure of the opposite side is, and over whatever the measurement of the hypotenuse is. So if we do sine of A, here's angle A. The sine opposite, or the side opposite, is little a. So it's like saying little a over the hypotenuse, which is the side across from the 90-degree angle, which is little c. So it would be whatever measurements there were A. So if A was 12 and C was 5, the ratio for the sine of A would be 12 over 5. If we take a look at B, again for sine, it's the opposite side over the hypotenuse. So here's angle B. The side opposite of B is a little b over the hypotenuse we said was C. So again, if little b was 6 and the hypotenuse was 15, we would say 6 over 15. And then you would reduce down that fraction. Another trig ratio is what we call cosine. We abbreviate it, which is COS, so it's not cos of A or cos of B, it's just, we say cosine. We just abbreviate it with 3 words, 3 letters. So if we look, the cosine trig ratio is the adjacent side. So whatever side's touching the angle that's not the hypotenuse over the hypotenuse. So we look at an example here for the cosine of A. Again, here's angle A. It's the side adjacent to it. So the side that's touching that angle, but it's not the hypotenuse. So it's B over the hypotenuse, which again is C. Okay. For the cosine of B, again, here's angle B. It's the side that's touching it, that's not the hypotenuse, so it would be A over the hypotenuse, which is C. And then the trig ratio tangent, all that is, it is just the opposite side over the adjacent side. So if we look at the tangent of A, here's angle A. I'm going to do a different color. We'll do this color. Here's angle A. It's the side opposite, which is little a, and the side that's touching it, that's not the hypotenuse, which is B. For sine of B, here's angle B. Again, it's the side opposite, which is little b, over the side adjacent, that's touching it, but it's not the hypotenuse, which is A. Okay. A way to kind of remember this, you're probably thinking, well, how am I supposed to remember what's sine, what's cosine, what's tangent? There's a saying that we use, or a shortcut we like to use. It's called SOHCAHTOA. All that is each section, so is representing the ratio for sine, cos representing the ratio for cosine, and TOA is representing the ratio for tangent. So for the first part, you just have to remember that it's sine. The ratio is opposite over the hypotenuse. For cosine, it's the adjacent, and again I'm just abbreviating, over the hypotenuse. And for tangent, again we abbreviate it with tan, is just opposite over the adjacent. The adjacent side. So it's really important, it's really helpful if you write that on top of your paper whenever you're taking a quiz or a practice or a test so that you know, help you kind of remember what these trig ratios are. So we look at some practice here. Here are kind of the steps right here on how to kind of set up your trig ratio. And again, it's really important. It's really important. You write so TOA at the top of your paper. So your first step is you want to start with your angle. So whatever angle they give you, that's where you're going to start. Then you want to label, identify which side in relation to that angle, which side your opposite, which side your adjacent, and which side your hypotenuse. Okay? And then you just decide, you look at your SOHCAHTOA, decide what the ratio is, and you fill it in. Okay? Well, here for A, we want to find sine, cosine, and tangent ratios for R. And we're just going to take a look at R, because if we know R, we can find S. So go ahead, I'm going to kind of circle my angle. Okay. Then I'm going to label O for opposite, A for adjacent, and H for hypotenuse. Okay. I'm then going to fill in the information that they gave us. So little r, we know that measurement is 16. We know little s, that measurement is 30. And we know little t, the hypotenuse, is 34. Well, if we want to do the sine ratio for angle R, if you look at SOHCAHTOA, sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. So we're going to write SIN for sine of R is equal to, we know we're going to have a ratio. The opposite, if you start at R, the side opposite, we labeled with an O, is 16. The hypotenuse, which we labeled with H, and we know it's the hypotenuse because it's across from the right angle, is 34. Well, you don't want to leave it as that. If you can, simplify that fraction. When you simplify it, you can plug in your calculator, do in your head, 16 over 34 is just 8 over 17. 2 can go into both. 16 divided by 2 is 8. 34 divided by 2 is 17. Again, we're just going to take a look at angle R. Angle S is the same steps. Okay. So if we look at the cosine of R, we take a look at the cosine of R. Okay, again, take a look at the SOHCAHTOA, look at the C for cosine, and it's the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So if we look, the adjacent side is 30, and the hypotenuse we said was 34. Again, don't just leave your fractions like that, make sure you simplify it. 30 over 34, when you simplify it down, is just 15 over 17. Again, 2 can go into both. 30 divided by 2 is 15. 34 divided by 2 is 17. And there's that ratio. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at the tangent of R. So look up here at your SOHCAHTOA, go to T for tangent. It's the opposite side over the adjacent. Well, opposite we labeled with an O is 16. Adjacent is 30. Again, don't just leave it like that. Simplify it if you can. 16 over 30 simplifies down to 8 over 15. Again, they're both divisible by 2. And there you go. There are your trig ratios for angle R. You would do the same thing with angle S. They're just going to be slightly different answers.